Do you think you know how to play Uma Musume Pretty Derby? Well, what if I told you that you were wrong? On the surface, Uma Musume is a very simple game. You pick the horse, you pick her parents, you pick the cards, and then you start training. Once you start training, you train to win all your races, you win all your races, and then you're done. You beat the game. However, there's a little bit of a trick here. For most people, beating the game the first time is actually very impossible to do. They don't know what they're doing, they don't know what they're training. But the game gives us advice on how to clear the game right at the start. You see, on the home page towards the bottom left, there's a rotating banner with information. And over here, you can find a guide called Sakura Bakshino's Advice. Upon clicking this banner, it sends you to YouTube, where there's a whole playlist with 8 videos on how to beat the game. And today we're going to be taking a look at beating Uma Musume the way Cygames intended it. Okay, today we're going to be playing Uma Musume using the Sakura Bakshino guide, Bakshin Advice. This is the comprehensive guide put together by Cygames for how to play the game and how to best navigate it. So in the first, well, it's kind of interesting because this thing, it's sort of all over the place. The guide doesn't necessarily tell you what to do like in order, but it just kind of gives you little bits of advice as to how to play the game. It, for some reason, ends with the sparks, which is the first thing that you do in the game. But according to the game suggestion, you should be going for the highest sparks that you can get. They don't talk about affinity at all, so we're just going to ignore this. And we're gonna say, well, we have high speed here on this one and white skills across the board. So we're throwing that one in there. They don't tell you anything about how to borrow. So we're not gonna borrow anybody here. Instead, we're just gonna find another one that's like really high. And we're not gonna scroll far for these because, well, it said to just use the highest, and these these are the highest across the board. This is looking terrible, especially for this Uma. Another interesting tidbit is that when it comes to selecting your support cards, the guide is very specific on what it tells you to select. It says you should start with 3 speed and 3 power cards. Honestly, we have speed, power, and stamina sparks, so I think that that's perfectly fine. However, the guide also does make a note on the next video in the series that you should also use a POW card to reduce your training failure. So we're going to just load up our 3 speed and 3 power. Now in this case, we're going to use Kitasan Black anyway because that is just the speed card to use. Okay, and picking the rest of our deck here, it looks very similar to the summer special week video that I did. Honestly, wait, I need to see if I have a better vodka. Vodka does have late surger skills, which is just the reason why we're going to use vodka as a power card. I don't think that there's a better one on my friends list. I think that is the only one. But anyway, this is essentially the type of deck that the game would want you to take. We're just gonna run with it. We're just gonna run with it. Okay, so let me ask you a question. What is the very first thing that you should do on the first turn of training on Uma Musume? Is the answer A, speed training, B, stamina training, C, power training, or D, wit training? The real answer is none of the above. You should immediately bring up your mood. The next thing that the guide suggests is that you find training that has a lot of friends on it and to always hit those. So we're just gonna always hit those. A fun fact too is that we did bring Tazuna, who on the first training that we do with her is gonna bring our mood up, but that's not gonna matter because, well, we already brought it up. Yeah, so that was useless. And then we get another mood up event. Okay, yeah. Now we're at a point too in the career where it says that we're going to have a failure percentage chance. This is really important, as this is where the PAL card comes in, and they tell us that we are to bring this with us to reduce the training failure. But also, we are told during the video that sometimes if the odds are even against you, that you just have to go for it. So we'll take the 6%. Odds are in our favor for that. And we're never really told to rest during any of this, which I think is a very interesting fact. I think they probably just assume that, you know, resting is something that somebody's going to do. But as we know, if the odds are against us, we should probably just go for it anyway. Wow, the odds were really against us there, and we lost out on 30 total stats. Yeah, well, now we have to do the other thing where they say to always keep your mood good or above. Well, we're back at good. Now, of course, this time, if I keep doing this and just constantly failing training, we're not going to get very far with this. Having Tazuna on training is pretty helpful, but we're gonna worry about that like towards the end. For now, we'll keep taking the friendship training, we'll rest, and we'll just kind of run some things like how you normally would. Honestly, the tips for the most part are fairly decent. There's only a few that I think are a little strange, but aside from that, I think we're actually doing just fine. All right, now it's time for the make debut. So when it comes to doing a race, the game does tell us, or well, Cygames tells us that we should take a look at our aptitudes and our style. Now here, obviously everything's going to be fine because the game kind of just defaults for the make debut to have you in a spot where your aptitudes are good and your style is just already selected between like what your Uma would typically do based on their unique. So that we don't have to worry about. But the guide does tell us that after winning the make debut, that we should aim to win as many fans over as possible, and to also check our aptitudes, and that energy has no effect on race results, and also to get in a good mood or a great mood before tackling each race. So we're definitely in a great mood now, and well, there's no races to compete in for a while, not one that we actually have the aptitudes for until the open here. Now they do also tell us to go for higher graded races. So the very first race that we're going to take on here is actually going to be all the way in late December when we take on the Hopeful Stakes. So we'll just schedule that now. I think here is a turn where we'll actually rest. That way we don't fail the training again. And I think for the most part that we should be looking at stuff being like roughly the same, at least in terms of how to go about training our Umas. We'll keep going for stuff that has high friendship training, and we'll just keep chasing those. Now, it doesn't tell you that you should prioritize the lower ones versus the higher ones. So it's not telling me that I should prioritize Kitasan Black. Instead, it told me that I should just go for ones where there's multiple. That's not to say it's bad advice, but I you know, it's okay advice. Okay, so when it comes to picking races, the guide tells us that we do need to check the style aptitudes and the distance aptitudes, and also the grade of the race. And also it tells us that we should check our predictions, and that if we have what it takes to be a top contender, we're in a good spot. But if we don't have this, that we instead need to go and get skills to make up for it. So with that in mind, we should be able to race this, and we win it. So now we're here at the summer training, and I have a question for you. What do you think the guide says about summer training? Fun fact, one of the reasons you're told to bring a friendship card is simply for the fact that you should be able, in theory, to train all through the summer if you use the PAL card's effects. Now, going into the summer, I don't have full energy. That's a nice little tidbit there. But if you train where the PAL card's at, you get reduced energy and better stats. Or, well, reduced energy consumption. You get your energy reduced regardless. And you also get that reduced failure rate, which I think is also pretty helpful. Now I think it's time that we talk about something that's really important. We're coming up on the Kika Show, which is a very stamina intensive race. It is the stamina check in a lot of Uma's careers. And it is the part where most people see the thing where it says you don't have enough stamina and you need to do more stamina training. Or, more importantly, you don't have enough guts and you need to do more guts training. This is where the guide for Last Spurt becomes really, really handy, and also probably extremely controversial. Cygames decides to tell you that Last Spurt is affected by guts, and it's decided by guts, which squeezes out the last little bits of stamina. So you need to comp it either with skills or to increase your guts. You can also increase your wit to conserve some stam on certain courses, but we are told here to train our guts. Now, fortunately, we do have a bit of training on our guts, like a couple little friends there. So we have Asian Flash with a hint and also Akikawa. But we're going to train guts here and get a nice little hint for late surging, which might be helpful. We don't have a recovery skill due to the cards that we were told to bring. And that's a fun little thing. However, we do have 2 on stamina training to bring up our stam. Now, we can check ahead of time to see. Form is good. She might just be a top contender. Well, might just be isn't good enough in my opinion. And I think we should buy a skill. So I think there's only one skill we can buy. And that is Breath of Fresh Air for a stamina skill. I'm also going to buy Redshift here because it's Redshift and just an amazing skill. So let's see it. Let's see how this goes. Everything is riding on this race and we're following probably a slightly questionable guide. It's got good advice, but it's also got some things that I think are a little it could be a little more specific. Probably great for beginners though. This could be great advice for someone just starting out. I think we should be able to clear this career with no problem. All right, we're finally hitting the final stretch. It is the last 1,000 meters and we've popped our unique. Let's find out if we have enough stamina and if we have enough guts. She's moving up. We should hit Redshift soon if it procs. I don't know that we are in position necessarily. She is flying though after popping her unique, and there is Redshift. Well, I think we win this race. Yeah, and it's by like distance. Holy. Undefeated triple crown, by the way. So we have followed all of the Bakshin guide's advice so far, and we are at the end of the URA finale. I think there's only one last thing left to do on our final training turn, and that's to hit guts. And now we are going to buy all of the skills that we can get, and then it's time to race. It's just time to go. We have 267,000 fans, and we have followed as much of the advice that we could so far. We've gotten our wit up and our guts up and focused on our speed and power. And I think now it's time to see the fruits of our labor. All right, it's time. And we got a late start. Okay. I thought about buying concentration and just decided not to. She hit multiple skills immediately. I feel like Breath of Fresh Air immediately was a little rough, and she got rushed. Oh my god, I literally did everything that we could to prevent these things from happening, and she got late start and rushed. The guide, it told me everything I needed to do. I don't know why I'm getting punished for it. She's moving up. She's like in the middle of the pack. Redshift pops. It's close, but we also have medium straightaways, which we bought earlier. And we win it. We only lost one race this entire career, and I ran some of the extra races that they told me to do. And that's an A and 1-star guts. Okay, well, you know how it goes here. 1-star guts. Get this trainer a 1-star guts. I give up. No amount of guides can help me get more 9-star Umas.